This platform of opportunity of Brexit, it's still there to be done. We can take advantage, and it was absolutely the right thing to do.
The goal of Brexit was for the island nation to reclaim power and the right to chart the course of its destiny. But with inflation climbing to 40-year highs, those lofty ideals have been under heavy scrutiny. Was Brexit a wise move? From when leaving the EU was first proposed in 2016 to 31st January 2020, when the move was completed, opinions had been split in half, although it tilted towards Brexit. But the economic crisis of the UK begs the question, should it have been different? What options on the cards right now are the right ones? Join us as we discuss the impact of Brexit on the current economic situation. Following Brexit, UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson launched a pact worth £660 billion or $885 billion and said it would allow the UK to retake control of its own laws while avoiding trade duties or quotas. Since then, there have been a number of developments and discussions on the conditions of the UK's exit from the EU and its long-term relationship with the organization. And the decision that was made on June 23, 2016, the referendum on Brexit, where the majority of voters, 51.9%, decided to leave the European Union. Now, imports from EU to the UK have fallen by over a third at 32.5%, and exports from the UK to the EU plummeted by nearly half. But the European Union is the largest trading bloc in the world with over 450 million consumers. It is also Britain's largest trading partner. So what was the plan to consolidate the British economy after Brexit? It is worth noting that after the UK formally left the EU in late January 2020, the country's gross domestic product experienced a decline of 0.4% in the month of February. In the third quarter of last year, the economy was 8% below pre-pandemic levels despite a UK-EU trade deal being in place for nearly 2 years. The pound has taken a beating, making imports more expensive and stoking inflation while failing to boost exports, even as other parts of the world have enjoyed a post-pandemic trade boom. Before Brexit, a farmer in Oldham could ship a truckload of potatoes to Brussels just as easily as they might send it to London. Those days are no more. Things have been difficult for small businesses over the past 2 years and now, especially with the ongoing cost of living crisis and the increasing financial pressures on the cost of goods. Besides, the EU-UK Free Trade Agreement's entry into force in December 2020 had a sizable effect on exports and imports between the two countries in January 2021. Textile, food, and automotive industries have been particularly heavily hit following the adoption of the Free Trade Agreement. Some offer a number of reasons why trade flows between the UK and EU may have been affected for a number of reasons. Some speculate that the impact of lockdowns and stockpiling in late 2020, as well as a misunderstanding over new bureaucratic rules and tariffs, may have contributed to the problem. Two-way commerce between the UK and the EU fell by 3.5% in the months following the adoption of the Free Trade Agreement, while US and EU trade increased by 12.3% during the same period. Given that the EU is still the UK's largest trading partner, this reduction raises the possibility that the UK economy may have trouble recovering as swiftly as other advanced economies. The Consumer Price Index, which includes housing expenses for owner-occupiers, showed an increase in inflation in the UK from 4.6% to 4.8% in the year ending December 2021. The cost of housing and transportation has increased, making this the highest 12-month inflation rate since September 2008. Worldwide supply chain disruptions, greater transportation costs, and a spike in energy prices have an effect on the UK as well as other nations, as additional data demonstrates the detrimental effect of Brexit on the UK economy. These factors have been made worse by its effects. Investment is 11% weaker, and GDP is 5.5% smaller than it would have been, costing the economy £40 billion or $48.4 billion in tax revenues annually. That's enough to pay for 3/4 of the spending cuts and tax rises that UK Finance Minister Jeremy Hunt announced back in November. The United Kingdom is projected to have one of the worst performing economies this year among developed nations. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development expects the UK economy to shrink by 0.4%, ahead only of sanctioned Russia. GDP in Germany is forecast to be 0.3% smaller. The International Monetary Fund forecast growth of just 0.3% for UK GDP next year, ahead of only Germany, Italy, and Russia, which are expected to contract. But the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development reported that the UK's GDP increased by 14.3% between 2016 and 2021. This growth rate, however, was less than that of 4 of the biggest economies in the EU during the same time period. Spain is at 25.6%, France is at 23%, Italy is at 16.3%, and Germany is at 32.2%. Investors are also concerned about the political unrest in the UK since the Northern Ireland Protocol, which went into effect in January 2021 and has hampered trade between Great Britain and Northern Ireland. The protocol permits the shipment of products from Northern Ireland to the Republic of Ireland without border inspections, but also mandates that inspections be conducted at Northern Irish ports prior to the shipment's entry into the United Kingdom. Boris Johnson did make an attempt to renegotiate several sections of the deal when he was Prime Minister, particularly the trading regulations for Northern Ireland several months later. The EU quickly rejected these attempts, arguing that the deal was final and could not be changed. Due to the increased bureaucracy brought about by this agreement, some businesses have stopped supplying stores in Northern Ireland. It's that bad, but what was worse was the political turmoil arising from the economic catastrophe. The UK Prime Minister Liz Truss resigned after only 44 days in office, following in the footsteps of Boris Johnson, who did the same thing after a short stint. Her resignation came after she abandoned her proposals for tax cuts, which devastated the financial markets and aggravated the nation's budgetary crisis. Due to the frequent leadership transitions and the ongoing fallout from the 2016 Brexit decision, the UK's once proud status as a diplomatic, economic, and global security powerhouse is beginning to show fault lines of cracks. Truss is the second change in administration and the 4th Prime Minister to quit since David Cameron left office following the Brexit referendum. Some experts in academia say this could be as a result of the UK disintegrating due to a greater global transition from the liberal international and institutionalism toward a multipolarity of regional powers. Keir Starmer, the leader of the Labour Party, declared that the party would seek to make Brexit work, with analysts suggesting that one or both of these steps would help to lessen the long-term harm to the UK's prospects for economic growth as the country continues to struggle. Many people are asking, will the country finally elect to rejoin the European Union in the wake of Brexit? On the one hand, many contend that leaving the EU was a mistake, that this is the biggest imposition of bureaucracy on business, making the UK a less trade-intensive economy, with trade as a share of GDP falling by 12% since 2019. This is 2.5 times more than in any other country. Others argue that the people have decided, and staying in would be a betrayal of the people's will. They say leaving the EU is an opportunity to restore sovereignty and steer the nation in a direction free from Brussels control by European restrictions. It brings to mind the analogy of the young college kid that is taking steps toward independence. When she leaves home, she abandons the comfort and luxury of her parents to beat a path for herself. She will be poorer for it in the short term, but in the long run, she will be better for it, maturing into a strong, independent woman that has earned her place in the world. The main opposition, the Labour Party, ruled out a return to the EU single market or customs union if it wins the next general election. The OECD forecast on Tuesday that only Russia would suffer a bigger economic contraction than the UK in 2023 among the G20 leading developed and developing economies. Despite criticizing the Conservative government's fiscal plans, the country's main opposition Labour Party on Tuesday ruled out a return to the EU's single market or customs union if it wins the next general election, due no later than January 2025. Labour leader Keir Starmer told a business conference that the party would instead make Brexit work. Thanks for watching this video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel to stay updated on global events as they unfold. You can check out our other videos on your screen. See you next time. Bye!